Football Podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Satkowiak. I'm so lost that there's only the two of us on today. I almost just introduced you as me. I brain farted for a second. I almost said, here's Ryan, but no, there's Clinton. Here's Ryan. For the first time in 2 months, we are flying solo on the show today. We have no guests. We are back to our regularly scheduled programming. Clinton, how does it feel?
It feels kind of odd. We've always had this guest. I felt a little less pressure tonight, putting children to bed and making it as timely because I didn't have someone other than you waiting on me to be ready at 9 o'clock, given that you and I can have a little more flexibility. It was a wild 6-7 weeks, a lot of fun. But I've also been looking forward just getting back to just your and I's opinions and talking some stuff about football. And we're starting tonight with a really popular topic, which is rankings, preseason rankings. Some people hate them. Some people love them. We know they're there for money and just to generate talk. So I'm looking forward to diving in that with you.
It was the last 7 weeks was a lot of fun, but it was really weird, like having to be on. You know what I mean? Like, just I have to be sharp mentally because I don't want this person who is well respected within the college football media to think that I am a smooth-brained moron, which, I mean, I guess you could argue that sometimes I am, but trying to hide it is hard. When it's just you and I could just let the freak flag fly. It doesn't even matter at all.
Be a little more goofy. Not knowing these people, like if you come off and I make some dumbass dad joke or come off the wrong way, they're going to sit here and be like, well, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah, you just get the sympathy. Anyway, moving on. Yes, so little bit of programming note before we kind of dig into this evening. We're once again live on YouTube, and I think we will be live on YouTube for the foreseeable future as we get into our, I guess we'll call this our season content. I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but since, boy, I buried the lead off the top. This is it's game week. It's game week. We are less than a week away from college football season starting, week 0. You bet your ass I'm going to be watching that SMU Nevada game at 8 p.m. on this Saturday night like it's the frickin' Super Bowl, man. I am pumped up for it. So with the season starting this week, we're starting our what's going to be our regular schedule as we go through the season here. As we have been doing, I know last week we had 4. The schedule the last 7 weeks was a little here and there, just as we tried to fit in these I guess if we're going to include the fantasy guys last week, these 21 guests. So our schedule moving forward here is going to be shooting on Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night in season. And there will be some variance with that, just depending on our schedules and some trips that we have coming up. But we will be live on YouTube for those, and then the shows will drop in the podcast feed the following morning. So for your Monday morning, Tuesday morning, and Friday morning commutes, you will have a fresh episode in your podcast feed if you don't join us the night before on the YouTube channel, which we are live once again on at ITP CFB. You can find us there. Make sure you're subscribed to that channel. So one, you could get notified when we go live, but also as the season goes through, we will eventually have some YouTube only content. More on that as pertinent. At ITPCFB is the same place you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as well. Make sure you're following the shows there so you can interact with the show, or if there is a scheduling change, you can be abreast of that there. And as always, if you would prefer to catch us in your feed the next morning, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your shows, we are at No, we're not. We're at Inside the Pylon, a Midwest College Football podcast on those. Drop a rating for the show, leave a review. If it's a review, you have a question or a comment, we'd love to read it on the show. And then your reviews definitely help spread the word. We would much appreciate that, especially with the fun stuff coming up here, the football talk. I think I covered everything. I think that's everything I wanted to touch on from a programming standpoint.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when we're on the live, if you guys do join us, we get a notification if you send a chat or a message. So as long as it is appropriate, what you send, then we can stop mid-show. Like, hey, we got a comment from Joe Schmo, and this is what he has to say about this team or this upcoming game. And we can put some of that in here just to engage with you guys more. We've really made it a point to also start trying to grow our YouTube page now. We've done a lot of work on Twitter. Instagram is hit or miss. It's a tough place to grow football. Ryan and I aren't out here making random asinine reels of us doing weird things. We're just going to sit here and talk football and have dumb jokes. So, but our Twitter and our YouTube, we're working really hard to grow that and get more engagement from you guys. So even if you watch the video after the fact on YouTube, give us a like, give us a comment, or subscribe. Help us grow the show.
You can give me a call too. I just won't give you my phone number. You can whatever you want there. So we kind of have a rough outline of how things are going to look in season, and this week will be a little different just because we don't have a true game week coming up this week. That first show Sunday will be kind of the weekend recap, where obviously highlighting on the Big Ten teams, but any crazy national storylines that pop up, obviously there will be some discussion on there as well. The midweek show will kind of vary week by week, just kind of depends on what's going on. If there's anything big newsworthy in Big Ten land, the goal for us will be try to get a guest at some point, but short notice. These guys all are doing this for a living. They're a lot busier than we are in that regard. So we know that won't always be possible, but that's something that's on our radar as an idea as we go forward. And then that Thursday night show will generally be the weekend pick show, weekend preview show. Not this week because there's no Thursday night games, but next Thursday you can join us live on YouTube for our first ever Big Ten pick show. And you can watch the North Carolina-Minnesota game with us, which I'm sure we will both have on our TVs in the background as we're going through that. I'm going to have to figure out my setup here so I'm not staring away at the TV while we speak the entire time. I might just do that one from the couch or shoot. I might do it from my iPad. I don't know. We'll figure that one out as it comes, though. I got a week to figure that one out.
Yeah, I will. The ITP flag may not make an appearance on those Thursday nights because if we got live Big Ten action, or if my Bengals are playing on Thursday Night Football, I'm going to have it on and be paying a little bit of attention to that. But that'll be certainly fun. I know that's something I've enjoyed that the Solid Verbal does, and then at least last year Until Saturday did. They would tune in, go live. They'd have some in-game comments of the game they're watching while they're doing their show. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. And you guys are more than welcome to come join us for that. We would greatly appreciate it.
The comments would definitely be flowing for that one too. So yeah, man, if you're listening right now, drop some comments, especially as we go through these. I'm interested to see your rankings because mine are, I don't know if off the walls really the correct way that I want to phrase these, because really the variance is not that great from what the actual AP top 25 is. But I just want to go on a little bit of a rant about preseason polls before we kind of get into the show.
Cheers.
I hate preseason polls. I think it's probably the dumbest thing that we do in college sports because we're basing it off of just entire conjecture. Like, we think this team is going to be good. We think this team is going to be good. And that's fine. That's all fine and dandy. The issue I have with that is when it's week 6 and it's clear that Texas A&M is not the number 8 team in the country because they're 3-3 after having lost to App State, or a couple years ago when Notre Dame started number 7 and then lost to Ohio State and Marshall. And we're sitting there talking about them at the beginning of the year. Oh, but they're a preseason top 10 team. That doesn't mean anything. They're a preseason top 10 team to whom? Sports writers, a group of 160 of them or whatever cover the sport, which I'm not sitting here and saying, oh, those are all clueless people. But I got to tell you, man, just us going through this preview series, the 19 teams that we did, that was tedious. It was a lot of work. And it was 20 teams. I have no idea how you can cover a singular team as your full-time job and then still pay enough attention to college football to be informed enough to vote in a top 25 poll. It's crazy talk. Crazy talk. I know that this is never going to happen because I honestly couldn't even tell you why they still do top 25 polls anymore. Maybe because they want something to talk about or some frame of reference. I think that if we are married to doing a preseason top 25 in the future, it should, or if we're, no. First of all, I don't think there should be one. It shouldn't come out until after September. The first poll should be released on whatever after week 4. After, like, once October comes around, or if we're going to do a preseason poll, it should just be what the last AP poll was from the previous season. So Washington Huskies are your number 2 team in the country. And then we play the games and then we see. No one's married to any preconceived notions or anything like that. That's my rant on it. I get too that, especially now, this was more pertinent in the BCS days when I don't remember if it was the AP poll or the coaches poll that factored into the equation, but I get it doesn't really matter anymore that this is just all talk. It's just a frustrating thing to me when it's like we're basing just random people's opinions on these football teams and saying, well, this team is good. That team is good. We have no idea who's going to be good. And I have no problem admitting that. I think that's it. I think I got it all out of my system.
Well, I was listening to a podcast last week, and they were talking about pretty much a similar thing. It was Austin Ward from the podcast that covers Ohio State. He said he hates preseason polls. He's, I think, partially even a fan of not even doing the playoff rankings until the second to last week. Because
that's a whole other thing. No, those first 3 playoff shows, that is literally a cash grab. It is all for money. Mm-hmm. It is literally all ESPN saying we want to turn this into an hour and a half of programming.
Yep. But he kind of married onto your point, or you married onto his point, and I've heard him make this point before, is how does the guy who covers Ohio State or Georgia and he has an AP vote exactly know how to rank all these other teams? It's not like he's sitting there watching all those teams. You'd have to watch more than 25 games a week, right? Because if you have a couple upsets, you need to have your ass covered to at least maybe the top 50, because if someone's sitting 45th in theory and knocks off the number 10 team, guess who's going to be top 25 now, barring that, they're not like bad record. So that makes it a tough part. We all know it's been here forever. So do they want to break tradition? Probably not. It's a money grab, but it generates a lot of talk. And you see it all over ESPN and Fox and all this, and they love to talk about it. They love to argue about it. It's kind of like ESPN covering the Dallas Cowboys. That shout out's for you, Xavier, because I'm pretty sure you're listening. They just slobber all over the Cowboys all the time, and that's all they want to talk about. So I think we get to this point when we're a few weeks out from the season, and a lot of these talking heads, they run out of crap to talk about. So jumping in on this AP poll and arguing, and Paul Feinbaum saying USC sucks and they shouldn't be ranked in the top 25, and whoever that other dude is that likes to yell and scream at the top of his lungs like this, whatever. It makes for TV.
The sad thing is I can't even begin to narrow down who that is, because I can think of at least 7 people that would.
It is the guy that you played at the beginning of our USC preview that was yelling and screaming.
Oh, Mad Dog?
Yes.
Nice.
But, I mean, a part of me is annoyed by it, and I get the point that they don't matter. I do like having a number next to the name. It gives me some type of value to think about.
Hold on. I just thought about this. What is, when that first committee ranking comes out, what is one of the first things that they cite on who's good? Top 25 wins.
Mm-hmm.
So why is so-and-so getting credit for beating a freaking top 10 whoever team because somebody just decided that they were a top 10 team heading into the season, and they
well,
or the other way, or the other side of the coin is these teams who rise up who were unranked in the preseason, and then they get kind of crapped on into late October, early November, because they're like, oh, well, we aren't really sure how good these guys are. Well, according to whom?
Yeah.
They weren't ranked because you people said that they weren't good. That doesn't mean they weren't good. That just means you guys didn't know what you were talking about because you didn't have complete information. So maybe we should wait until we have complete information before we're ranking these teams.
Well, there's going to be a prime example of that, potentially week 1, when LSU and USC play.
Mm-hmm.
If LSU wins that game,
and
USC dies off and goes 5-7, but USC was ranked. What are they ranked in the AP poll? They're top 25.
I think
so.
They're
LSU, you know damn well, come to playoff, if LSU's sitting there 9-3, you're gonna say, well, LSU did get that opening week win over number 23 USC. Well, USC is now 5-7, so we have the full truth of what they are, and they weren't a good win because they couldn't stop a nosebleed. And it could be vice versa if LSU falls off the face of the earth and USC goes to win. But you know how the USC or the SEC likes to play things in their favor there to get more teams in the playoff. But that exact argument's going to come up. So,
Clinton, I don't think the SEC is really going to have any problems getting a bunch of teams into the playoff this year. If we're going by my preseason ranking, my rankings, I think they're going to have 4, potentially 5.
I think 4. That'll be interesting when we get to our playoff prediction next week, where we all have them. We do have our first comment.
Well, actually,
from a person that I want to chime in real quick from our man Xavier. He says Ryan still sounds a little bit bitter about that Marshall loss.
Wait, where did he comment at?
He commented to me directly.
Oh,
he sent me a text.
Oh, I mean,
comment the show next time, Xavier. Comment the show next time.
I mean, if the shoe fits. I actually, okay, so I guess we can get into this, and I think that I kind of screwed us for the playoff prediction because I did my rankings how I think these teams are going to finish.
Ooh, now see, I did not do mine that way, so that'll be fun.
Because I am boycotting, because I get the hypocrisy of me ranting about top 25s, and oh, by the way, here we're going to drop an hour-long show about our preseason top 25s. I get it. So I'm not doing a preseason top 25. I'm doing a top 25 based on how I think these teams are going to finish, therefore how good I think these teams are going to be this year.
I think that's fair. I think there are other writers out there who do the exact same thing. I feel like it's probably – do you feel like that section who decide to do their rankings that way is more in the minority or the majority?
Probably. Well, see, here's what I don't understand is there needs to be some kind of clear criteria on this, because it's clearly not entirely based on last year, because if it was, then Washington would not have been completely MIA from this rankings. Like, and I'm not going to sit here and say that Washington's going to be a top 25 team this year. They're not in my list that I put up, and I didn't even think about putting them in here.
I didn't either.
But if we were sitting here and saying, hey, this is based on we're kind of factoring in last year and projecting a little bit towards this year. I mean, well, that's not I mean, maybe it's entirely true. Maybe people just don't think Washington's going to be good this year, but okay. So that means we're not factoring in last year at all. But then you're going to sit here and tell me that you think that Michigan's the 8th best team in the country, and we have no idea who's playing quarterback or offensive line for them. And they have one of the most difficult schedules in the country. So I don't, and this goes back to, I think, what you were kind of talking about, like putting this list together was hard. Like I spent I did not intend to spend as much time as I did on this today. I spent like 2 hours on this because I'm like sitting here, like I literally pulled up all these team schedules. I'm like, well, I guess who I could see them losing to. This is what I think the record's going to be. It was insane for me to do this on a Sunday because I don't put that much effort into this. So I get how hard it is. It's just, I don't know. Because I think there are some people who probably do like I did, like, hey, I'm trying to use this based on how good I think everyone's going to be without like thinking. And I get it's really hard to not think about last year too, because, okay, why is everyone thinking that Ohio State and Oregon is going to meet for the Big Ten title game? In large part because of how good they were last year. So I get that there's a lot of that too. I don't know. Do you just want to get into it?
Well, let's do it.
I've ranted enough for one episode.
We talked a little pre-show, guys. We're going to do these in blocks of 5 instead of Ryan and I just bouncing back and forth, reading them off. To do just more of a sectional grab, and then we'll kind of discuss within those where we have those. But we want to mention, I had a few that I almost put in the top 25.
So this is, I made note of not, I guess you could say teams that were just among the others receiving votes, but I said these as my absence. So these are teams that were in the AP top 25 that I did not rank in mine. And I had 3 of them. So the first one I have is Kansas, just because I have no idea like what this Big 12, like I have a fair amount of the Big 12 in the back half of my top 25, but I'm not confident about that at all. I have no idea how this Big 12 is going to shake up. There's like, I guess, so, okay. So I think Utah's the cream of the crop, and we'll get to them eventually. But after that, I mean, I'm not even confident in saying that Utah's the cream of the crop. I'm just assuming. But God, there's like teams 2 through 7-ish. I could see going any number of ways. I could see any number of these teams finishing 9-3, 10-2. I could see any number of them going 8-4. Wait, I said 8-4. No, I didn't. 8-4, 7-5. With Kansas, they don't have Bean anymore as kind of that safety net for Jalen Daniels, who's just missed the entire season last year with a back injury. So I would like to see him get together a couple of healthy games before I get back on the Kansas train, plus losing Andy Kotelnicki to Penn State. I figure there's probably a fair amount of Lance Leipold in this offense. If not, he's the entire mastermind of it. But a little apprehensive about that is all with Kansas. Do you want to alternate this, or you just want me to list my three?
Yeah, I'll go with this first one. It was Kansas as well. Kansas was my most nearest to entering, I think, the next 25. Same reasons as you. I love Jalen Daniels. Can he stay on the field? There's no Bean here this year to back you up. Kotelnicki's gone, as you mentioned. I really like Leipold as a coach. I think it's a talented team. And if Jalen Daniels is fully healthy for a full entire season, I heard this on the Joel Klatt show, I could obviously see them in the Big 12 championship.
Same.
I think the Big 12 is just a giant group of like 6 to 8 teams that if anything goes right for that team, they're in the Big 12 championship. And I would love that for the Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Oh, I agree. So like in that same vein, like I did not have West Virginia ranked, though I did not feel great about that. I could see them being like, I could see them beating Penn State to open the season.
Mm-hmm.
You would not have to squint too hard to see that for me. They got a pretty difficult schedule. So I just kind of, like I said, they were part of that group that I wasn't really sure what to do with. So funny thing is I made this list first and I had Kansas at 24, and then I couldn't figure out who because I was like comparing to the AP top 25. I'm like, okay, who did I forget? I forgot to rank Michigan. I spent I spent 3 minutes looking through, and I just skipped over Michigan each time because I'm like, there's no way I forgot that. And then I'm like, who's not on my list? I'm like, oh shit, there's no Michigan here.
If my phone blows up tonight from all the app mentions you get us for initially not having Michigan in there in that comment,
I'm gonna
be really sad.
I did not do that on purpose.
Oh gosh.
So then next I did not have USC ranked. I think they were 23 in the AP poll. I just don't see it with them. The schedule, I mean, would it shock me if they went 10-2? No. But it also wouldn't shock me if they went 6-6. Like this, there's so much variance with this team, and I don't think that their ceiling is as high as it was last year without Caleb Williams. Plus, you're looking at the schedule this year. I mean, you got Michigan. We started LSU first and foremost. Like that's a killer start to the season. As bad as LSU's defense was last year, that's still probably the most athletic team that Michigan or that USC is going to face this year. Then Michigan in week 4 is no slouch. Is that going to be the best defense they see all season? Probably. Penn State's is pretty good. You got Penn State too. And then you end the season with Notre Dame, who also has a really good defense. And if USC is, 7-4 going into that game, are they really going to be up for it? Like, I mean, sure, maybe you have a chance to ruin Notre Dame's playoff berth, but like, I don't know how good this team is.
Yeah. If Notre Dame is sitting on the cusp of getting that first playoff berth, they're not going to lose that game. I don't care if USC shows up and plays their heart outs. They're not going to beat them.
Well, and also you got to know that they're still probably pretty salty from how that game in the Coliseum went 2 years ago. And if USC is really hurting, then you got a chance to maybe end the Lincoln Riley era. You know that they're going to be like, okay, let's finish this dude.
You have to put your foot on their throat at that point.
Let's finish this dude. Yeah. So I did not have USC ranked because I think I think their ceiling might be 8-4, and that's kind of like a back half of the top 25 others receiving votes territory.
My next one was SMU, actually. Preston Stone is a really nice quarterback, fun addition to the ACC. I had him very close to the top 25. I don't know if I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, I don't know if I saw any other top 25s that had SMU.
I do not believe so.
Feel pretty good about them. I'm not going to lie. This is a little bit of bias from the NCAA 25 football game that helped me with that. But as was mentioned on other shows, man, you play the game, you start to learn these teams a little bit. And I'm excited to see what SMU does year 1 in the ACC, but just missed the top 25 for me.
We'll talk about that in a minute here, Clinton. And then the one other team that was in the AP top 25 that I did not rank was Oklahoma.
Woo! Okay.
I believe they were 16. I feel like the schedule is going to be a little too much. Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, Mizzou, Alabama, LSU. If you're looking at the AP top 25, that is, count them, 6 teams in the preseason top 15. I feel pretty confident in saying that at least of those teams, Texas, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Bama are going to be exceptionally good this year. I could see, if Nico hits, Tennessee also being pretty good. And then again with LSU, they got a ton of talent. I mean, if Blake Baker can fix the defense and they can at least get quality quarterback play out of Garrett Nussmeier, I mean, that's a toss-up game at best then. So I'm looking at this Oklahoma team as like, I mean, they could still be a pretty good team and go 7-5.
It's also hard to believe. I didn't even remember last year that Oklahoma won 10 games last year.
New quarterback coming in, redshirt freshman Jackson Arnold, really talented, but he looked like in the bowl game. So that gives me a little bit of pause. What was Nate talking about? Last week. He's a big Seth Luttrell guy, so we'll see what he's able to get out of this offense. But boy, that schedule. I think this is more of a schedule thing than an Oklahoma itself thing. That just seems like eventually something's going to break.
Yeah.
And it could be Jackson Arnold.
Unfortunately. That was honestly my last. I don't know what I was going to say. Sorry, I was trying to check the chat there. We do have a message, and I was trying to get it.
Oh, boy. Up. Oh, here, I can do this. I got this. Kirk, SEC going to be a rude awakening for Boomer Sooner. I agree. 100%. I completely agree. Was the SEC did them dirty with that schedule draw, because that's I mean, you think about it, though. Like, I mean, Ole Miss is usually pretty decent, but they're never like, I think this is probably going to be or at least is looking like it's going to be the best Ole Miss team in ever, maybe, potentially. Yeah. Missouri's on an upswing right now, and that has not really been the case. Obviously, Bama's always been Bama. LSU's been trending up, but I mean, they've been, so erratic the last 15 years. You never know what you're going to get from them. And I mean, even Texas has just recently come on up too. So they just caught a lot of pretty talented teams at a pretty bad time in their character arc.
Certainly. My last one, shout out to Kirk, who must be watching, was the Virginia Tech Hokies. I'm really high on this team, and they are a dark horse ACC champion sleeper for me. I don't know. I know Ryan and I are going to hit the Big Ten hard on our predictions. I maybe we'll slip in our championship game prediction for each conference and winner. Don't need to try to predict a whole conference, but I think Virginia Tech has a really good chance to disrupt some stuff in the ACC this year. I love Kyron Drones, Tootin. Hopefully I said his last name right. They have Lane and Jennings out at wide receiver. They got a really good defensive end and a good corner. So they're going to be a pretty stout team. And walking into that atmosphere is a tough spot to play. The key early in the season is going to be a matchup with Rutgers.
Yep.
And we've been very high on Rutgers. So I feel like for either one of those teams, when you lose that game, can you bounce back and get your season on the right path? And then my last dig before we enter our rankings. No to Colorado. Come on, NCAA 25. They're not a top 25 team. Why are you out here giving them tons of overalls? No. I didn't even think about Colorado. I wanted to add an insult to them.
I was gonna say I literally I didn't even think twice about it. Like I didn't even think about like saying, "Hey, I'm gonna say no" as a statement thing. I literally did not even consider putting Colorado in.
Yep. All right. We're to the big thing now, if you're ready to move to it.
Yes. So we'll go 21 to 20. Well, I guess 25 to 21. So we'll go blocks of 5 here. So at 25, I have Texas A&M.
Okay.
I did not feel great about this. I really like Mike Elko. And I think, I don't remember if it was Nate or Jared who were talking about it on Thursday. Like, you turned Duke into a really good football team, like fast. We're not talking about like a 6-7 year build here. Like right away, he turned Duke into a pretty good football team with and I get it's the ACC and the ACC is not the SEC. But if you look at A&M's schedule, I outlined 4 games here. Obviously, the opener against Notre Dame, they play Missouri, they play LSU, they play Texas. Other than that, the schedule is very manageable. If they are just aggressively competent this year, they should be an 8-4 team. And okay, so this is actually a good segue to. I ranked these how I think the final CFP poll is going to be, and as you well know, the SEC bias in this is real. So I have a lot of SEC in this because I feel like they kind of get an unfair benefit of the doubt that they don't necessarily really deserve because they don't play anyone in the non-conference, and when they do, they usually don't fare like as great as their reputation would suggest. So yeah, that's part of why I have Texas A&M at 25. 24, I have SMU. I think that their schedule is incredibly favorable. The jump is going to be tough, but looking at their schedule, really the only two teams that I could really look right now and say, I don't think they're going to beat them is Florida State and maybe Louisville, and the rest of it, it's like, I mean, they'll probably lose a couple just because that's a tough move going from the American to the ACC, but it's not like they have we're talking a murderer's row conference here. I think they get both Cal and Stanford, who are both kind of So I think this is a team that could end up finishing like 9-3, 10-2 this year, which in the ACC should get you to the back half of the top 25. 23, I have Louisville. They've been a pretty popular pick for another team that's going to be unranked but finished ranked or potentially challenged for a college football playoff spot. They literally did that same exact thing last year. Oh, God, I can't remember the defensive end's name. I want to say Ashton Genty, but I know it's not that. That's the Boise State running back. But one of their Russians is really good. He's a legitimate problem, like a legitimate game record dude. And in that conference, that's good enough that it could steal you a game or two that you should not win. Their schedule is not super forgiving. You're going to Notre Dame. You also play Miami and Clemson in addition to the aforementioned SMU, which maybe that's not a tough game. But the rest of it seems pretty manageable. But again, how good are they going to be with a quarterback who has talent but is quite literally never been healthy, to put it lightly? You don't play 6 years of college football unless you are injury prone. Number 22, I have UCF going a little bit off the wall for this one. I think that, so they're part of that like weird second-ish first 1B tier of the Big 12 that I don't really know what to do with them. And maybe it was the KJ Jefferson talk from last week that's got me feeling a little spicy on him right now. But I mean, if Gus Malzahn can tap into that potential that we saw from him a couple years ago, this could be a really dangerous offense. Toughest games, obviously, you get Florida early. That could be a big game for a multitude of reasons. But then in conference play, you get Iowa State, Arizona, West Virginia, and Utah. So that's a pretty tough conference draw. So we will see how that plays out for UCF. And then at number 21, I have Oklahoma State.
Okay.
Again, being led by a quarterback who was in college for as long as I was, and Alan Bowman. I was in college for 7 years. Wait, 9 years. 9 years if you count grad school. 9 years with grad school. But from a conference schedule standpoint, they get Utah, Kansas State, and West Virginia. So even if they lose those 3 games, I still think 9-3 is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
So that's my first block of 5, Clinton.
Yeah, my only comment on those ones was the one you made about Louisville. Tyler Shuck. If he's not healthy, I think Louisville's in big trouble. If he can finally be healthy, you might be looking at another appearance in the ACC championship.
Agreed.
All right. No, now I did mine different than Ryan did his. I tried to rank my top 25 based on how I feel from what I heard in spring ball and from what I've heard right now in fall. This is not a projection of how I think they will finish, although some of them could be. Number 25 to start off the bat for me are the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Wow.
I am riding this train, man. I've been riding it since we talked in spring. They have a very favorable schedule. As we mentioned with Redcast Rob, there's a very good chance they are at minimum 6-1, but potentially 7-0 coming into Columbus. You come in 6-1, 7-0, even though Ohio State's going to be heavily favored, you're a dangerous team. And the reason of that is they return a top 15 defense from last year, despite how much that Alabama fan wanted to argue with me. Now, again, we talked about, is that because the Big Ten West offense is stunk? Potentially. But stats are stats. They were top 15 defense. They're bringing a lot of those guys back. I believe, I can't remember if Redcast Rob said this or I heard it with Joel Clapp, but all the offensive line is back. And Dylan Raiola is a supreme 5-star talent. And we have talked endlessly every time we talk about Nebraska, the Matt Rule second to third year jump. And I think this is going to be really good for Nebraska. I'm buying stock on the Huskers. I have been for a while, and I'm buying a little more with them at 25. One team I considered not putting in the 25, but I did it because I believe in the talent they have, is USC. I think Lincoln Riley always has an offensive juggernaut. The question is defense. It always has been with him since Oklahoma. Can Danton Lynn come in and have that same type of effect and turnaround on this defense the way he did with UCLA? I beg to differ to an extent because you're in a harder conference. You're in a new conference. You're going to be going east to west, east to west, east to west. It's going to be a big challenge. But I don't really think the defensive problems was a talent issue for USC. I think it was a coaching problem, and I look for them to do fairly well. We'll see. Number 23, scroll up my little sheet here, the NC State Wolfpack.
Nice.
Grayson McCall, Kevin Concepcion, two really nice offensive pieces there. They are literally the definition of consistent. I dug into NC State here. They have had 2 losing seasons since 2010. Dave Dorn, I believe, has been there since 13 or 14. Kirk, if you're listening, you may be able to correct me on that. He's a great coach, man. They are the epitome of consistent, and I couldn't see a reason why they wouldn't start in that top 25 for me. 22 is a team you mentioned, Texas A&M. Connor Wegman, big fan of him. I think if he's healthy, he can burst on the scene. We know that people are saying he's a dark horse quarterback to creep into that top 3 quarterback ranking for the draft this year. They're still dripping with talent everywhere, even losing guys in the portal. And the same thing Ryan said, not to beat a dead horse. David Elko, great coach. I think he's an automatic improvement over Jimbo.
David Elko?
Did I say his name wrong?
Mike Elko?
Mike Elko. I don't know where I got David from. Mike Elko is an instant upgrade over Jimbo Fisher. And I'm really excited to see what he can do with this team. If you can take Duke, who is a basketball school, to the bone and turn them into an effective ACC team, what can you do with all this talent that Texas A&M has? And then number 21 for me, a team I've been a big fan of since the latter half of last year, the Arizona Wildcats.
Mm-hmm.
Noah Fafita and Tedatoa McMillan. I probably botched his first name.
Close enough. T-Mac.
They're studs. I'm so thrilled to watch this offense. The biggest question is you lost some players when Fish left, and you lost Fish. So let's see what this team, if they can keep capitalizing on the momentum they finished with from last year.
That is a beautiful segue, Clinton, into our next block. My number 20 team is Arizona for pretty much everything you just outlined. Again, I mean, I guess it depends on how you feel about West Virginia and UCF, but their draw in the Big 12 is not the most favorable with those 2 teams plus Utah and Kansas State, who I think a lot of people are pretty high on. So maybe 9-3-ish for Arizona seems about right. I am a little... maybe apprehensive is not the right word, but I'm not really sure what the Brent Brennan experience is going to be like compared to what they were like last year with Jed Fish. So to be determined on that. Next up, we got a nice little wow, I did not do that on purpose. This ended up being 4 straight Big 12 teams.
Yeah.
Good for me. Kansas State at 19. I think the true ceiling on this team is going to hinge on Avery Johnson. If he is as good as is advertised, then they could be potentially in that Big 12 title game this year. They miss Utah in the regular season, getting Arizona, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. So pass there for him. I think Chris Kleiman's a fantastic coach. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. So really, really excited about them this year. 18, I have NC State. You already kind of outlined why. From a scheduling standpoint, they get Clemson in conference and Tennessee out of conference, and the rest of it is just kind of eh.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a good schedule for this team. KC Concepcion back. I'm interested to see in what Grayson McCall looks like. He's a weird one, man. I don't know what to make of him because I feel like his time to strike in the portal was last year, and there were some rumors that he could not, like his grades were not like even good enough for the SEC, was something that I read on a message board, which is bad. That's bad. Well, I guess it was like the old Stetson Bennett. He was at Georgia for 6 years and never graduated. So it's like, what are you doing? Like, okay. Anyway, so his play out of the Jamie Chadwell offense last year was just, I don't think he was that great, but I am interested to see what he can do with Robert and I, because he's a pretty good coordinator. So, wait, is he still at NC State? I don't know. Someone can fact check me on that and then yell at us on Twitter tomorrow. That's fine. 17, I have Iowa. I thought about putting them higher just because other than Ohio State, I'm really not sure where the losses are going to come on this schedule. But also, when the schedule's that bad, if they lose another game and go 10-2, I think they're going to end up a little bit further down than what you would think a 10-2 team would, because they just won't have a quality win then. Yeah. So that's my thought with them, is they're going to lose to Ohio State and they'll probably trip up somewhere else, just because I think the offense will be a little bit better, but not good enough to not stumble somewhere else playing a pretty good defense. So that's why I have Iowa at 17. Number 16, I have Tennessee. Perhaps I am buying the drinking the Nico Kool-Aid. I'm not really sure, but their schedule is a dog too. Just mentioned the NC State non-conference game, and then in conference you have both Bama and Georgia, in addition to Oklahoma. So, depending on how you feel about NC State and Oklahoma, it could be 4 losses on this schedule, but also if they went 10-2, it wouldn't surprise me. So, I'm choosing to say they'll probably end up at 9-3, which for an SEC team will put you around that 16 mark.
And potentially in the playoff.
I still don't buy the 9-3 is going to be a playoff team unless it's a conference champion.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, that would be automatic, but
right. But I don't think I will believe it when I see it with the 9-3 as an at-large team in the playoff.
Wait until you tune in for our playoff prediction episode, folks.
Well, has his done. So, for example, if Oklahoma goes 9-3 with this schedule this year, I could see it.
Yeah.
But the issue with the 12 team, and maybe when we go to 14, it'll happen, but the issue with the 12 team playoff is you have to be top 11 to make it, because the 12th, the 5th conference champion is almost always going to be a team that's not in the top 12. And I think, especially at the ACC or the Big 12, you're going to get some years where a team, you'll never get it in the SEC or Big 10 because there's no divisions anymore. So the conference championship game is always going to be a team that's ranked, 2 teams ranked in the top 7-ish. So you're not going to have any birth stealers from the Big 10 or the SEC, but it wouldn't surprise me if even this year it happens where you get Kansas State comes in ranked 17. You got Utah at 9, and then Kansas State upsets them, gets the auto berth, and Utah only slides down 1 spot.
Oh, I was going to say, or they could be ousted.
See, that's another thing, is I don't know that someone's going to get penalized that much for having to play an extra game. Yeah. So in that instance, you have to be a top 10 team to make the playoff. And I don't know if I have time to do this, but I feel like if you went and looked back at the last CFB ranking from the entire 4-team era, how many 9-3 teams were in the top 10 for that last ranking? It can't be a lot.
Florida was one. The year they had Kyle Pitts, and I'm blanking on his name.
Was that the COVID year though?
It was the COVID year. So what I'm saying, that's a blippy year, but they were top 10. Remember, people were arguing they should have been in over Ohio State. Ohio State only played 7 games, 6 games?
6 games. Yeah, so I count me in the camp of I'll believe it when I see it with a 9-3 team making the playoff as an at-large team.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number 20 is, I believe, a team Ryan covered already, Oklahoma State Cowboys. This team is tailor-made for this age of college football because they have a ton of veterans. They have 18 starters back, folks. 18. Now remember, 22 playing a game, or at least start. 9 on each side of the ball. They obviously already mentioned Ryan, the quarterback, coming back, but they have Ollie Gordon, the reigning Doak Walker Award winner. And they get their top 2 receivers back and their entire offensive line. That sounds like a team that's going to bode pretty well for Mike Gundy. Hey, I got a coach name right. Pat myself on the back there.
Good for you, bud.
So I think, as we just already said, the Big 12 is a big mess. It's going to be really fun and really entertaining, but we're going to see how it plays out. Number 19 for me, Kansas State, which I think was your 19, right?
Kansas State was my 19. That is correct.
Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens going to make this offense really fun and tough to stop. They're pretty tough just overall. So we won't continue to rehash there since Ryan already touched on. We'll move next to my number 18, the Oklahoma Sooners, a team Ryan did not have in his top 25.
Oh, wow.
As we talked about, the schedule is really tough. I'm going to believe in Brent Venables. He's year 3 now. They got to 10 wins last year after a very interesting first year with him. I think this defense continues to take another stride. If they can at least split those big 6 games that you mentioned, if they can go 3-3, I think they're going to have a pretty good chance to do well this year. Obviously, they're going to need to clean house in those other 6. Wow, we just got a big jump in comments there. We have a Xavier comment and a Kirk comment there. So let's see. Utah's going to surprise.
Oh, Xavier, just you wait. Just you wait.
And then Kirk, 9-3 was good for 13th in the last college football playoff rankings last year, which was LSU.
Yeah, no, and that's what I mean. Like, I feel like that 13 to 15 range is going to be flush with 9-3 teams, but it's still in the 12 team. It won't get you in.
Number 17, the Tennessee Volunteers.
Nice.
Nico.
We're close.
Obviously, he's going to be – well, he has the whole world of talent talking about him. He had that, $10 million NIL deal reportedly he signed.
Something like that.
He gets to pair into an offense with Josh Heupel. I've heard some talk that they expect this to look like when Hendon Hooker was there, not Joe Milton. So if this is Hendon Hooker, Tennessee, and Nico might be more mobile. They got to have a defense. James Pierce, likely the number 1 pick in the draft.
He is good.
But can they make the jump? Can they not have a snafu or a snag in games they shouldn't? And how are they going to hang in the big games? But I like Tennessee there. Number 16, LSU for me. I got belief in Garrett Nussmeier and Brian Kelly. They have an elite O-line, especially their offensive tackles. I can't think they can be any worse on defense, right? How can you be worse?
You can't be. You can't be. I mean, you could, but...
but then they brought in, blanking on his name, Missouri's defensive coordinator. Blake Baker to run this D. I heard they addressed all the needs they needed to in the portal. Plus you have Harold Perkins. Good Lord. Harold Perkins and James Pierce, those 2 pass rushers in the SEC.
Yep.
Woo, boy. That's a lot of Southern speed, folks. A lot of Southern speed. So I'm intrigued to see with LSU, but I have them at 16. I'll let Ryan take us away to 11 through 15 now.
I don't know that I want to say number 15.
Can I try to take a guess?
Yeah.
I think you're going to say Michigan.
You're absolutely right.
And here come the comments. This guy's an asshole. He doesn't know football. We won the national championship. Go Blue.
Listen, I would rather get that than the guy who was in our mentions today being like, clearly you don't watch football. Have you seen our offensive and defensive lines talking about USC? I'm like, yes, I did watch your offensive and defensive line, and I was watching Caleb Williams run for his life for 12 games last year.
Poor kid almost got killed.
Yeah, he was just like, okay, so if you ever interact with us on Twitter, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Clinton because I just don't have time for that. And I had time for this one. I had time for this one.
I went to go comment back, and I already seen inside the pylon comment. It's like, oh, Ryan got in on this one.
I'm like,
listen, buddy.
I'm like, we talking about the D-line that anchored a defense that gave up 35 points and 440 yards a game last year? Because that's ass, buddy. That is like used toilet tissue paper ass.
Stinky ass.
It's bad. Okay, here, Clinton. Can you tell me how many Power 5 teams allowed more yards per game than USC last year, and how many Power 5 teams allowed more points per game than USC last year? I can give you a hint. You can count both of those on one hand. That's how bad their defense. It was 5. There was 5 teams that allowed more. I don't remember what they were. I didn't write the teams down, but there were 5 teams that Power 5 teams that allowed more yards per game and 3 Power 5 teams that allowed more points per game. That's bad. Mm-hmm. That is why I'm not taking your team seriously. I'll believe it when I see it from Lincoln Riley on a defense. Anyway, enough USC talk. Let's talk about why I had Michigan at 15 in happier news. Like I said, this is where I think they're going to finish thing, not where they should be ranked in the preseason thing. Because again, in my world, we're just carrying over the top 25 poll that ended last season. So Michigan should be your preseason number 1 team because they're number 1 until proven otherwise. I think that is going to be proven otherwise on week 2. I think they're going to lose to Texas, and then probably Oregon and probably Ohio State as well. And if they got another loss in there, it would not surprise me, but I think they'll probably finish about 9-3, which I'm not quite in agreement with Broom when he said I could see this, if this team goes 9-3, I could see them making noise for the playoff, because I don't think that's going to happen, because if you go 9-3, well, unless the 9-3 is like you beat Ohio State and Oregon, but you also lost to Texas and USC and some other weird ass Big Ten team that you had no business losing to, then I could see maybe the argument like, oh, well, you beat 2 playoff teams, but I don't think that that's how Michigan's season is going to shake out. So I see the Wolverines at 9-3, therefore they come in at 15 in my preseason rankings. 14, I have Clemson. I don't feel good about this at all because I don't really feel good about the tradition of the Clemson football program. Maybe we get a year 2 jump in the offense with Garrett Riley, and maybe Dabo had a come to Jesus moment talking to his Lord and Savior in the offseason, and he said to him, Dabo, let Garrett call your offense like he wants to.
That's what he's paid to do.
Let the man do his job. I died for your sins. Okay, we're getting into blasphemy here.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Oh boy. It is Sunday.
It is Sunday. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. No, I don't know, man. I don't know if Cade Klubnik is it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like Phil Maffa. Phil Maffa's a really good running back. Their defense should be disgusting again this year. But if you don't have the quarterback with this offense, I mean, we've seen with the Dabo Sweeney experience in Clemson, if he has an elite quarterback, they're going to be one of the best teams in the country. If their quarterback play is just decent, they're not that great. So a lot hinges on what Cade Klubnik does this year, and that's another thing that I'll believe it when I see it. So I mean, their schedule is not that challenging. Well, the high-end games are challenging. You got Georgia to start the year. You got Florida State. You got NC State. Funny that we're calling NC State a high-end game here, but the rest of the schedule is very manageable. So I think the floor for this Clemson team really should be 9-3.
Don't forget App State in there, but after Georgia.
App State, I guess that is a group
of 5.
Yeah, that is a dangerous trap game. That's a good point. You're
going to get beat up with Georgia, whether you win or not. You are going to be beat up. And you're going to get to play. You get them at home, obviously. But App State's no joke, man. They have a lot of returning people on their team.
That's true. They did just beat Texas A&M a couple years ago in College Station. So, yeah, trap game. But again, either way, I think Clemson should be 9-3 this year. 13, I have LSU, another team I think is probably going to go 9-3. I think they probably take care of USC the first weekend. But in conference, you're getting Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. That's a lot of either really good teams or at least aggressively competent, what should be aggressively competent teams for a defense that was anything but last year. So I think the defense should be better. The offense will probably be a little worse. That's what happens when you lose 3 first-round picks, 2 first-round picks. I don't remember if Brian Thomas ended up going in the first round.
I think he did to Jacksonville. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what happens when you lose 3 first-round picks. The offense is going to be a little worse. Doesn't mean anything is going to be bad. It's just not going to be as good as it was last year. They'll probably finish at 9-3 this year. Number 12, I have Missouri, who, talking about favorable schedules, man, you got Bama, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. That, if Missouri's as good as they were last year, that should be 11-1. Like, this is not a team that should lose to Texas A&M or Oklahoma. They could. Yep. I don't know what the defense is going to be like, and losing the defensive coordinator is obviously a huge blow, but this is kind of, I mean, there's a couple teams kind of in this like 10-19 range that I feel like there could be a lot of variance here just because I'm not confident in any of these picks. I'm just throwing that out there right now. But Mizzou's a team that I could see sneaking into the playoff for sure. But I think they'll probably lose to Bama and then trip up to one of those other 2 teams that I mentioned. Number 11, I have Florida State. I think this is not the highest ranked ACC team I have. Kind of a similar thing to what we've been talking about, or what I've been talking about, at least in terms of the schedule. The top end is pretty good, and then the rest of it is pretty manageable. Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame are the highlights. I think they probably lose 2 of those 3 games. And I guess that would put them in the ACC title game. So I guess they still could. I mean, I guess they're a playoff team in this instance. So anyway, yeah, there's my next block of 5.
See, Ryan does a wonderful job putting in the schedule parts that I don't have to go through and talk about it that much.
Well, listen,
I just
man,
need to follow up.
I told you if I was going to rank these based on how they were going to finish, I need to see who they're going to lose to.
Yeah,
got to see who they're going to lose to.
All right, number 15, another team I have bought stock in since the spring. Now we're preseason, spring season. The Iowa Hawkeyes, absolutely loaded on defense. Can they find an offense? Can they do it? We know receiver's not going to be the strongest position for them. They need to have good O-line play to be able to either keep either one of the quarterbacks upright. It sounds like it's a pretty fierce battle right now that is not just going to be handed to McNamara, which I think bodes well for them. I think it's better than, we got to roll Deacon Hill out here. And I didn't mean roll because they were calling him the Pillsbury Doughboy and they could roll him out. That wasn't very nice. But
that's almost as offensive as my Jesus talk.
Well, he is now at Utah Tech. So that's my point here.
Oh, boy.
Iowa rolled out a kid who's playing at Utah Tech. Deacon, this is no dig on you, my man. You are what you are. McNamara and Sullivan are much better talents for D1 football. Can they figure it out?
Let's address Kirk's comment here real quick.
Let's do it.
Missouri at UMass has to be the weirdest scheduling of all time, right? 100%. Because I don't even think they're playing it at like Foxborough. I think they're playing it at UMass's stadium.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hell of a pull to get a good SEC. I wonder when that game was scheduled. That had to have been scheduled when Missouri was ass.
Well, it's great for Missouri because they can pull their first stringers by the end of the first quarter. This will be the new MAC. Massachusetts, they're Minutemen, right? Massachusetts Minutemen next season. They join the MAC.
Rejoining the MAC. Because I'm pretty sure they joined the MAC in like 2014 and they were there for 3 years and were so bad they got kicked out.
They got demoted.
I'm pretty sure, I'm like 98% sure this is factual information. But again, if you want to fact check, if anyone wants to fact check me on this and yell at us on Twitter tomorrow, that's fine.
All right. Number 14 for me, the Clemson Tigers. Ryan, I felt like I could have put them here, and I felt like I could have put them 25th. I was torn on where to put these guys. I watched them play a lot last year. One of my best friends is a Clemson fan. I know what he's been riding the roller coaster the past few years. Turnovers, man. Turnovers. I think they said they had 22 fumbles last year. And 13
I can see that.
They recovered. So that means they lost 9. That's a ton. We saw them lose the fumbles against Duke.
They literally lost that game because of the fumbles. The turnovers are the sole reason they lost that game.
My faith is I believe that Klubnik takes the next step. I do not think he will ever enter the realm of Watson or Lawrence. Not even close. But I'm thinking he's better than, and why am I blanking on his name? But let's say he's a Taj Boyd. How about that?
There you go.
Plays at a Taj Boyd level.
That's good.
Kelly Bryant. He's going to be better than Kelly Bryant.
I mean, Taj Boyd took him to an Orange Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like with Clemson, we're going to have a pretty good idea on what they're going to be in week 1. Like, you don't need to come out and beat Georgia, but if you look competent against Georgia, okay, you're probably going to contend for the ACC. If you get, and maybe this isn't the best comparison because Oregon ended up rebounding and being pretty good, but if you get Oregoned by Georgia,
that game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
I think
pitched
so.
As not a home game, but it is a home game for Georgia.
But Clemson fans travel pretty well.
They do. But I think they could be a really good team. I love the defense. They got a ton of talent on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Can they get wide receivers? That's been a struggle since we know Higgins.
Couple pretty good freshmen coming in. We'll see if they're better than the last couple of pretty good freshmen that they thought were going to be.
Per Ty and Dan from the Solid Verbal, they're probably going to have to rely on those freshmen a lot at the wide receiver position. Phil Maffa, absolute stud. The guys last Thursday sold me on him. I will be hunting for his name in college fantasy if I can get on it. My next team after the Clemson Tigers is the Missouri Tigers. I have a lot of faith in this.
Tigers.
They're loaded on offense. They bring Brady Cook back. They have Luther Burden, who may be the best wide receiver in college football. They're bringing in another running back, who his name is Marcus Carroll. He's coming from another small school up to the SEC. Can he make that same jump that Cody Schrader did? They finished last year with a big win over Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. How does that propel them into this season? And you already mentioned the advantageous schedule, missing Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU. Toughest game is Bama and Oklahoma. Lose the one to Bama and beat Oklahoma, you're 11-1 and you're in the SEC championship, probably playing Georgia or Texas or maybe Alabama, folks. Maybe Alabama. Don't sleep on the Tide. So I really like this Tigers team. I think they're going to be really good. Number 12 for me, the Florida State Seminoles. They have another. Go ahead.
I thought you were going to say Florida, and I was going to flip my computer.
No.
Like, Clinton, we need to check that cup because I think you've slipped something a little more toxic than water in there, buddy.
No. Now, give me the Florida State Seminoles. Another good defensive line and another good offensive line. This is what they searched for years that they couldn't get. Who was it? James Blackman. Was he there? They had to go against Bama, and he got absolutely massacred to the point he was injured.
Oh no! It was that was still Ricky Jean Francois. He tore his patellar tendon in that game.
Okay. Well, anyway, Blackman,
because they were like preseason top 5, and the big thing was, this kid's going to be a Heisman favorite. And then blew out his knee. And
did Blackman come in for him then?
I think so. And then they were just completely non-functional.
Yep. Regardless, they have good trench play, which is really important. They do lose a ton of talent, obviously, but it sounds like Norvell did a really good job, again, attacking and filling needs in the portal. He seems to be the coach who has the best success with bringing in portal players. Sorry, Deion Sanders. And can he get the most out of DJU? We've seen the highs of DJU at Clemson. We've seen the highs at Oregon State, and we've seen some lows. Can he maximize what he has with him? And then my number 11 team. They are on the rise. The Utah Utes. Cam Rising is back. Brant, I've been saying Brant this whole time. Brant Keithy is back.
He's a Brant muffin.
Line up at tight end. We know our boy Xavier loves his Utah players in fantasy, so he'll probably draft Rising and Keithy again this year. They filled their needs in the portal, and I love Kyle Whittingham as a coach, and I love the toughness that his team plays with. I fully expect this to be most likely your Big 12 champion coming out of this year. They are a great team. All right, Ryan, we got 6 to 10 now.
Boy, I have 2 up here that I thought were really bold, and based on your rankings, I feel like you're copying me.
This is not true, folks. I am not Connor Stallions. I'm not stealing Ryan's signs.
Number 10, I have Notre Dame. I am officially capital C concerned about the offensive line. I am officially capital C concerned about the offensive line to the point that I think they might legitimately lose to Texas A&M.
You put them 10th? And you're the Notre Dame fan on this show?
Yeah. So I've been operating under the assumption that they beat Texas A&M and then trip up once along the way to finish 11-1. I think if I were to put money on it right now, I think they're going to lose opening weekend. So I'm without hijacking this into a Notre Dame episode. Starting left tackle tears his pec. He's out for the season. Sounds like originally they're going to replace him with a 5th-year senior who was a top 150 recruit, but he's a 5th-year senior who's not played any meaningful football. You can probably figure out what that means, i.e. he's not good. His grasp on the starting job lasted 2 days, and now they've been repping another true freshman. Well, not another. They've been repping a true freshman at left tackle, and it sounds like he might actually start, but it's not the true freshman who was the highest ranked player in their class. It was a different guy. And they've been running a redshirt freshman at left tackle or left guard instead of the 2 left tackles the 2 left guards who actually started games for them this year. So you might be looking at a Notre Dame offensive line that takes the field against College Station, that sees a left tackle that has no career college snaps, a left guard who has no career college snaps, a center who is really good but only started the last 3 games of last year, a right guard who only started the last 2 games of last year, and the right tackle who's never started a college game. That is bad against that Texas A&M front that even though we're talking about losing LT Overton and Walter Nolan, they still have some capital D dudes on that line. I am interested to see what Mike Denbrock's game plan is because I feel it's going to have to be a lot of Riley Leonard rolling out and throwing screens and RPOs and trying to get rid of the ball in less than 2 seconds because that's probably all the time he's going to have. So if Notre Dame loses that first game to Texas A&M, that takes away a lot of your margin for error for the season. It obviously doesn't eliminate you from the playoff, but it still would not surprise me if this team slipped up once. I think the floor for this team is 10-2. As I've said before, if they go less than 10-2, I'm going to be a very unhappy person on this podcast. But the offensive line has me capital C concerned. So they are number 10 in my preseason rankings.
May I chime in before you go to number 9?
Yes.
I just live tweeted for the first time ever during this show.
Oh, God.
And it's a great image. Ryan just literally made my jaw drop mid-episode with his ranking of one team. And it's an awesome GIF. It features Chris Farley and Adam Sandler. You guys should go check it out. I got to pick my jaw up here, man. Put it back.
I mean,
I didn't see that coming with you.
It could be just the inherent scar tissue of being a Notre Dame fan that I assume that everything that will go wrong because that's what my entire life has been with this frickin' football team. But I don't like starting a true freshman at College Station. That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Another side nugget. I love you, man, and I love our Notre Dame fans. I wasn't picking Notre Dame to win week 1, even with their left tackle in hand.
That's a tough game. That's a tough game.
I was gonna have them lose, and then we'll talk about later what I was gonna have them do after that. But
yeah, man, I don't know. The good news for them is I don't see them losing to Louisville, because if you lose to Louisville 2 years in a row, then I think that Marcus Freeman is legitimately on the hot seat. You can't lose that game after what they did to you last year. And then you have like 6 weeks to figure it out before you play a football team with a pulse again. So they should be rip roaring and ready to go by the time they get Florida State the first weekend in November. I think they probably win that game, but I don't know. I don't know what to do with this team this year. So they're going at number 10. I think they'll still be a playoff team, hopefully, or I might quit the podcast because I will never be seen in public again. Number 9, I have Miami.
The Canes.
Yeah, I thought that I was going to be clever with this one, but you have not mentioned Miami yet, and you also did not mention that you were not ranking Miami. So either you are so low on Miami that they did not garner a mention from you, or you are in the same boat as me here. I think it's put up or shut up time for Mario Cristobal. It's time for them to do something. They got Florida State, Florida, but then Virginia Tech and Louisville. I mean, toss-up games for sure, and they have not proven that they can win the toss-up games. So this is a lot of projection on my part. I think they finally put it together. They got some dudes on the defensive line. They miss Clemson in conference play. So I think that they are the other ACC champ. I think it's going to be them versus Florida State rematching in the ACC title game. Number 7, I have Penn State, mostly because other than Ohio State, I have no idea who this team could possibly lose to. I think 10-2 is the absolute floor, which should probably get you in the playoff, but it wouldn't surprise me if they went 11-1. I think Drew Aller is going to have a big year this year. I love the running back room, and I think the defense is going to be salty again. The offense maybe is not as dynamic as what we saw with Kansas last year with Andy Kotelnicki, but I think it'll be good enough that they at least give Ohio State a scare and then beat everyone else on their schedule. Number 6, I have Ole Miss. Speaking of favorable schedules, I don't know how favorable your schedule can be when you have Georgia on it, but other than that, it's LSU, whom Ole Miss has recently beat, and Oklahoma, that'll be a tough game for sure, but we've already been over that I'm not high on the Sooners. Ole Miss is, under Lane Kiffin's, been really good about beating the teams that they should beat, and then when you get against one of those top 5 to 7 teams, they get the shit kicked out of them. So I feel like they're probably going to get the board.
So what you're saying is they're the SEC version of Penn State?
At least Penn State has looked competitive. Yeah, I guess. At least Penn State's looked competitive in a couple of these games over the last few years. I know the Michigan game last year, they did not, and Ohio State. I don't even know what the hell that Ohio State game was. We were watching that game at my cousin's ceremony, and I was paying more attention to the ceremony because that's how boring that game was. It was awful football.
That was hard to watch.
But yeah, man, they got Georgia and Bama last year got their doors blown off by both, and then they beat everyone else on their schedule and then beat the snot out of Penn State in the bowl game. So I think Ole Miss will probably end up at 11-1, maybe 10-2, but again, they'll still be firmly entrenched in the playoff. Maybe not an SEC title game participant, because I'm sure you can do the math. I have multiple SEC teams ranked ahead of them.
Yep. Was that 6?
That was 6.
All right. Going to mine. Number 10, the Michigan Wolverines, the defending champs. This is the one I told you pre-show that I went back and forth on. I had them a little bit higher. I put them lower. I could put them lower than this. Now, reason with me. I know it's the Ohio State guy, right? They lost a ton. It's just not on the field. It's not always about what you're bringing back, and I understand the defense is loaded, and they're going to be a top 3 defense, maybe the best defense in the country this year. Blake Corum is gone. We've mentioned this with Broom. Donovan Edwards is up and down, man. He is up and down. Can you get a full season of consistency out of him? I know they always have good O-line play. Sharon Moore's quoted as saying, as long as I'm here, that will continue. You're still replacing a good amount on that team. And then wide receiver, I don't really know what they have. You're expecting, what is Samaj Morgan, 5'6"? Am I taller than him? And you're expecting him to be your best wide receiver? Like I just retweeted something earlier today. I expect Colston Loveland to be the leading receiver on this team. Partially because I don't know if Jack Tuttle or Alex Orji can throw the ball enough to be able to do that, which is why I think they end up going with Orji, because he at least has upside in the run game to do for them. So I don't know about this Michigan team.
When Broom said they're trying to teach Alex Orji how to play the actual quarterback position,
that's dangerous.
I agree.
That's dangerous, and Broom is a great Michigan insider, and that tidbit of information made me wonder too. Like, your defense can't save you every time.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot save you in every game. If you cannot move the ball, they're going to get tired and they're going to lose, and you might lose to Texas, and you might lose the USC depending on how you play. Number 9 for me, you already mentioned it, Ryan. The Miami Hurricanes are a top 10 team.
You son of a bitch! God, I thought I was going to be clever with that one, and you came in and usurped me.
They have the offensive players, the trio that I love: Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, and Xavier Restrepo.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great trio, man. Great trio. Plus, folks, they have a really good D-line and a good offensive line. If you got the trench play, especially on offense.
Clinton,
what?
I skipped my number 8.
I thought you missed one. Who was your number 8? Throw it out there real quick.
Number 8, I had Utah.
Okay.
X-Man.
I had a feeling you'd have him there.
Yeah, that's my bad. I went from Miami to Penn State. I have Utah number 8.
I was wondering when I said that was 6. I was like, I feel like we missed one.
No, anyways, I just can't count.
I'm really excited about the Hurricanes. I'm with you. It is 100% put up or shut up time. Now, again, these aren't my where they'll finish rankings. Let's see if I get Miami in the playoff. Do I truly believe that they'll get over the hump this year? Or do I just give them a false top 10 ranking to start the season? We'll see. Number 8.
They're just going to cold take this whole episode when Miami is 7-5 after this season.
Yeah. And
we should just
laugh at us.
We can just save this clip so that way we can play it in November. Like, hey, we told you so. We both totally didn't rank them number 9 preseason. We're not crazy.
Number 8 for me, Penn State Nittany Lions. Same thing. Put up or shut up time. Come on, James Franklin. There's no excuse with your schedule and the talent that you return. You should have a better wide receiver room this year. I do disagree a little bit with the Penn State insider Matt Flip that we had on. I think Julian Fleming is going to be more than just 4 or below receiver for them. I think they're going to need him to be a top 3, maybe top 2 wide receiver for them. Number 7, also schedule you already mentioned, though, for Penn State. They avoid everybody but Ohio State. Come on. 11-1, 10-2 at worst. Has to be.
Yep.
Number 7 for me, Ole Miss. Another team. This is 3 straight that's put up or shut up time for me. Lane Kiffin, this may be your best team you have ever had. You have accumulated mass talent from the portal on your own team. Jackson Dart is a really great quarterback. Ulysses, is it Bennett?
I think it's Bennett.
I almost said Grant. Go back to the Civil War days. Ulysses Bennett at running back is a phenom, even without Quinshon Judkins. Pay attention to this team, guys. They're really loaded, but can they get over the hurdle of the teams they need to beat? And number 6 for me, I believe in the luck of the Irish. Notre Dame. I did not falter on you, Notre Dame fans. I did not. You're going to lose week 1 to Texas A&M, but damn it, you're going to go 11-1 or 10-2 and make this playoff. So don't at me, at Ryan, your faithful fan who put you number 10.
Guys,
but at least he remembered. At least he remembered to put you in the top 25. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, you guys understand. You understand my plight.
I feel you.
You understand. Notre Dame fans, you understand. You know what I'm going through because you're going through it too, or you have gone through it. It's always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's always something with this team. This year just happens to be the starting left tackle tears his pec. And you know what? Anthony Knapp might be a frickin' freshman All-American by the end of the season. It wouldn't be the craziest thing that's ever happened because the last true freshman left tackle to start a game for Notre Dame, Clinton?
Joe
Alt. Started the year as a fourth string. It was the frickin' offensive line room in 2021 was like a Final Destination movie. Everyone was getting hurt. By like game 5, they're like, homie, you're up. You got to go. And that's all she wrote.
Shit up, Joe. Go F shit up.
I don't think Anthony Knapp is going to be Joe Alt on game 1, but if he is playing if he's playing pretty great by actually, you know what? Blake Fisher started that season at left tackle too, as a true freshman. He started game 1 as a true freshman at Florida State and tore his meniscus at halftime, or going in the first half, not at halftime. He's partying in the locker room. He tore it at halftime. No, yeah, Blake Fisher is the last true freshman left tackle to start a game for Notre Dame.
Nice.
And he lasted one half because he got hurt.
We have
part of the Final Destination movie. Yes, the top 5.
Our top 5.
I need to stop making everything about Notre Dame. That's on me, guys. I apologize.
We haven't got to just mainly talk, you and I, in 2 months. We've had guests on, thank God, who have been our show, and they have provided us with so much information. You guys have missed the glorious opinions that Ryan and I have. And here they are. We're back, baby. Top 5.
You have no idea how much weird I've had to hold in the last 2 months.
Now, I think top 5, Ryan. I think we should alternate.
All right. Number 5, I have Alabama, the Tide. I'm still giving you credit for the last guy who was here type of thing. But Kalen DeBoer is a pretty good coach. They have a ton of talent. I think I don't think he's necessarily going to turn Jalen Milroe into Michael Penix, but I think he's going to make him more of a functional passer. And he's already a dynamic runner. Ton of talent. They reloaded well in the portal. Their schedule is not awful by SEC standards. You got Tennessee on here, Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma. I think they probably trip up once or twice, but I guess I don't have them playing for the SEC title game either. So I don't know. I don't know how these tiebreakers work.
I don't know if we have an answer yet.
For any of these conferences, this is just going to be such a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
If you have, I'm sure that there's going to be either in the Big Ten or the SEC, 3 teams at 10-2 tied for second. And it's going to be some combined record of your conference opponents or something like that. And then everyone's going to freak out rah. They shouldn't freak out though, because if you're all in that conversation, you don't want to play that game and lose.
Yeah.
So you get a bye week on conference championship game week to prepare for your home and or road playoff game. So not all bad news. Not all bad news if you're the Tide.
Number 5 for me is, yes, another SEC team. The Texas Longhorns. Hook 'em horns. I worry about the running back room. I think Jaden Blue will be fine, but you've lost a ton of depth. You lost your 2 stud defensive tackles. You lost your stud wide receivers. You do return Quinn Ewers. We'll see what the offensive line looks like. You better have a good O-line situation heading into Michigan, or you're going to be in deep doo-doo because that defensive line is going to eat Quinn Ewers alive. Now, props respect as the Ohio State fan. Quinn Ewers calling it that team up north. I'll give you some respect there, buddy. But I think it's going to be another great season for him. What I worry is, can Sarkisian give us back-to-back seasons of success? He finally had it. He finally tasted it. We've waited for Texas to be back. Can they stay back? And now they enter the toughest conference in football.
Yes. Number 4, I'm doing a really bad job about our future planning and not just teasing stuff that we're going to do on a future episode. I have a very specific scenario playing out for number 4. I have Oregon here. I think they're going to beat Ohio State in Eugene. I think they're going to lose the following week to Purdue in an all-time letdown game. And then I think they're going to lose to Ohio State in the rematch in the Big Ten title game to finish 11-2.
Dude, I'm buying
might-
champagne bottles to pop off if we're at
Listen,
a game that upsets Oregon.
I might just be trying to manifest because I think that would be incredible for the capital C content to capture a field storming on the camera and live stream
Yes.
that. But
I don't know if I can go to sleep that night.
well, the good news is we have like an hour drive after that game to get to the hotel. So
hey, we got it down to 30 minutes. We got it down to 30.
Oh, that's not bad. Okay. Maybe it's not Purdue, but I think that they'll beat Ohio State in the regular season. They'll lose a game to someone that they shouldn't, and then they'll lose in the rematch in the Big Ten title game.
I am number 4, the exact same. Whack, whack, Oregon Ducks. I think they're a really talented team, loaded to the gills. My worry is Dylan Gabriel's health. You're also stepping into a new conference. Let's see how that works. I also worry about the Purdue game. I think they're going to throttle them, but that Ohio State game is going to be tough. And I think the November trips to Michigan and Wisconsin, don't sleep on them, Oregon fans. That's a tough cross-country trips to play those two teams.
That's true. Number 3, I have Texas. I don't really think that their schedule is all that difficult, all things considered. It depends how you feel about getting Michigan in week 2. I think that's going to be fine for them, even with the running back room. I think Michigan's still going to be figuring their stuff out. I mean, I could see them losing that game. I'm not going to sit here and say, wow, Texas is definitely winning that game. It would not surprise me if they lost that game. I don't think they will. But otherwise, in the non-conference, you're getting Colorado State, UTSA, and Louisiana Monroe. You should win all those games.
Typical SEC out of conference.
Typical SEC out of conference. Although, to be fair, they are playing a game at Michigan. Mm-hmm. That is not typical SEC. Although I guess Bama's doing that with Wisconsin this year. Mm-hmm. But in conference, hold on. I'm going to sneeze.
And there it goes.
I muted it. We should be good. So in conference, obviously you have the Red River game against Oklahoma. I think they'll probably win that. Not easily, but I think they'll win. The tough one is going to be getting Georgia the week after. That's 2 weeks in a row getting up for a really good opponent. It's going to be tough. I think they'll probably lose to Georgia. The week after that, they have Vanderbilt. Even if they have the biggest letdown game of all time, they should not lose that game under any circumstances. And then they have a bye week. So that schedule shakes up pretty well for them. They have a bye week before they play Oklahoma. They finish up with Florida at Arkansas, Kentucky, and then at Texas A&M. That Texas A&M game could be a little spicy because I think that will probably be the best version of this A&M team. Plus this rivalry game coming back, it's going to be turned up to a 12 on the intensity scale. Some legitimate hate between those two teams. Rivalry game, you never know what could happen, but I think that the Longhorns will get it done. They'll go 11-1 in the regular season and then probably rematch Georgia in the title game.
Number 3 for me, Roll Tide Roll. And I went back and forth. I think my 3 through 5 could be very interchangeable. I just think we're giving up too fast on Alabama, man. Kalen DeBoer is a great coach. He's not Nick Saban. He's got to step into some really big shoes, like size 19 shoes, Shaquille O'Neal shoes. But they are loaded with talent. We saw what he could do with Michael Penix and working an offense to his skill set. I think they're going to do the same thing with Milroe. I think you're going to see a better Milroe, not from the standpoint that, yes, he has 1 year starting experience, but I think DeBoer's going to put this system with him and make him that much better to the point that he might be a Heisman contender. I'm not as confident in the receivers. We'll see. I love the running game. They're always going to be good in the trenches and on defense. I don't think you're going to lose that. So I have a lot of faith in the Tide this year, or at least to start the season. I don't think they take that big of a step back. If they're 10-2, well, guess what? Weren't they 11-1 last year?
Mm-hmm.
Or did they have 2 losses? They had 2 because they got in over Florida State, right?
No, they only had 1.
They had
one. The Texas loss.
Okay, so they only had 1. So it's 1 game step back, and you made the playoff, and you'll make the playoff at 10-2 this year.
Yep.
So we just got another update here from Mr. Kirk. He is hanging tough with us here. Lots of SEC hate out of you guys, bashing Texas and their SEC non-con, while Ohio State has murderer's row of Akron, Marshall, and Western. Come on, guys.
That's a nice little segue into my number 2 team. I have Ohio State at number 2. behind only Georgia at number 1. I guess I'll just go the last two because we can figure that out.
Might as well.
I have Ohio State behind Georgia because of that non-conference schedule. It's literally a 3-game season for Ohio State. You got Oregon, you got Penn State, you got Michigan.
It's the Michigan schedule of the last 3 years.
It's literally the Michigan schedule of the last 3 years. As we kind of outlined, or I just outlined with Oregon, I think that Ohio State will lose the first game, but win the rematch, win the Big Ten. But I think they'll be behind Georgia because Georgia's schedule this year is very tough. Very tough, let's say. It is not the typical. Well, I guess they do get UMass and Georgia Tech to end the season. That's a nice way to end. Although that Georgia Tech team could be pretty spunky.
Mm-hmm. Noting this weekend, 12 o'clock. ESPN in Dublin.
Yes. Starting the season against Clemson, I think that's going to be a pretty easy win for them. I'm not going to lie. I don't think this Clemson team has what it takes to hang with Georgia. Could be wrong. If I'm prepared to be wrong, it wouldn't be the first time. I think the one loss on this schedule is probably going to be at Alabama. I don't know. Let's just call it a hunch. But then you're also playing Texas, you're playing Ole Miss, and you're playing Tennessee at Ole Miss, and then Tennessee on back-to-back weeks is fairly daunting. So here's how it shakes out. So you got Texas, then you got a bye week. Then it's Florida at Ole Miss, Tennessee before finishing the season with UMass and Georgia Tech. That could be pretty tricky, but as we kind of talked about with Ole Miss, they don't beat really good teams, so I don't think they're going to win that game. And then Tennessee could be a toss-up, but I think somebody gets Georgia somewhere at some point in the regular season. I think they'll finish 11-1 before beating, I guess, Texas again in the Big Ten title, or the Big Ten, the SEC title game, based on how I have my rankings here. I'm assuming that's how it's going to work out. But again, I could, like, those three, I guess more so, I could see Alabama or Texas kind of interchanging spots. I think Georgia is still the cream of the crop. Carson Beck's probably the best quarterback in the nation. They're loaded everywhere. I think that's going to be kind of the differentiator between those other two teams. I like Quinn Ewers. I need to see a little bit more from him before I'm ready to anoint him the next one.
So, can anyone guess who my number 1 is? Does anyone have to guess?
I mean,
Ryan?
It's probably, I feel like it's going to be Ohio State, but I could also see you being a contrarian and putting Georgia just to get rid of the beat the homer allegations.
My number 1 is Georgia. My number 2 is Ohio State.
Yeah.
They have Carson Beck, which is a big reason why I'm putting them 1 over Will Howard. I love Will Howard. I think he's going to do really great things. And for any Ohio State fans who don't believe me, go back and watch our fantasy preview when I told them they should have Will Howard top 10 in their rankings. Beck, they're loaded on defense. Pete Thamel checked out the ESPN College Football Podcast last week for their playoff prediction. Pete Thamel was quoted as saying, "This is the best Georgia offensive line he's seen in his 20 years of coverage."
Oh boy.
So if that's the best offensive line they have, and they have the best quarterback in football, and they have 2 nice tight ends, they're going to run the ball. And Dominic Lovett at wide receiver and an elite defense, they're number 1 for me. I think they're going to be pissed off coming out how the way last year ended.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kirby Smart is the best motivator in the game. I've only seen one motivator probably better than him, and that's Urban Meyer. No knocking Saban. I think they're the top 3. But the things I've learned about Urban Meyer and the way he found to get people motivated, insane. And Kirby Smart is right on that level.
Yeah,
he will have his team pissed off and ready to kill people. They will be racing 100 miles an hour down the road to beat people's ass. You like that racing pun there?
Yeah, well, I was going to say Urban Meyer got the best out of his players he just literally kicked them.
Yes. Kick a kicker when he's down. And then number 2 is Ohio State. I love the Buckeyes. I think it's going to be a great season for them. The 3-game season Ryan mentioned, I think, is big. They should be in the Big Ten championship, and they better be in the playoff. Get your game against Michigan. We'll see what you can do, but they're too loaded with talent to not be 1 or 2 in someone's rankings.
I also resent the accusation of SEC hate because I have 4 teams in my top 6 from the Southeastern Conference, and I have 8
Kirk,
SEC
I have
teams
Georgia,
ranked.
Bama, and Texas in there.
I have literally 8 SEC teams ranked.
Yeah, I have a lot too.
SEC bias. You heard it here first. We are an SEC bias podcast.
It just means more, or they're just better. I don't know.
It just means more unless it was a non-playoff game because we didn't actually care about that.
Yep.
Bingo. Cool, man. That was our top 25. That was a lot.
Absolutely. That was fun.
I'm sure that there is going to be some people disagreeing with that. So if you disagree, I don't care.
Tweet us. Give us comments. Please leave us comments on the YouTube. I get notified when you do that.
Yeah, man.
Interact with us.
Listen. This is not. Well, this is how I think. This is how good I think. This is how I think the teams will finish. So if you want to say that I'm crazy for thinking Miami's the 9th best team in the country, cool. That's fine. I think that they'll prove it at the end of the year. And if they don't, we have the clip to say that we actually didn't care about for Miami all that much. So gotcha, Jacques Hughes. Notebooks closed. That's my top 25. Clinton, anything else you wanted to touch on before we peace out for the evening?
Just got Big Ten predictions tomorrow night. I'm ready to roll with those.
Yes.
I think we're doing our predictions based on over-unders, right? We're not literally going to list win-loss totals for every team.
No, yeah. We'll just do over/under. I don't have time. No. I don't have time. Listen, man. I had enough of a pain in the ass trying to get this thing together today. Yeah. So, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we'll be back with you tomorrow night live on the YouTube again. This is going to be our regular season schedule, more or less, moving forward. So we're talking our Big Ten predictions tomorrow. Things such as conference title games, yada, yada, yada. But then the over-under win totals that we mentioned with each of our beat writers over the last 7 weeks going through the fall previews. Clinton and I will just run through that number, and we'll just give you an over and under on what we think for each of the 18 Big Ten teams plus Notre Dame. So that's going to be how tomorrow's show shakes out. Yeah, I think we got a couple more things in here, so maybe we'll surprise you guys. It'll be fun.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for another marathon tonight. Thanks for stopping in, everyone, once again. We'll be back with you all tomorrow night. Have a great evening.